Which Tory would pass the 3-hour grilling? Jacob Rees-Mogg? I don't think so.
No, but I like
John Redwood and let's put people up so they have the grilling.
Let's put a kipper up for grilling.
Oh, Mark Francois. Can you imagine him after 3 hours of grilling from the EU? How red would Mark Francois's face be after 3 hours in front of the EU?
Why doesn't the House of Commons do that when a minister is appointed? Have a 3-hour grilling before they take office.
The select committees, that'd be great. As a member of the Environmental Audit Committee, I would love for us to have the Secretary of State for the Environment for a 3-hour grilling before Michael Gove got the job. It would have been great to give him that grilling, you know. So,
totally makes sense.
They do it in the US. They do it in the US, don't they?
Yeah. Well, they do it in lots of places. It's almost like we could learn from other countries and institutions.
Shock horror.
Yeah, but to come back to the workers' rights across Europe, I mean, one of the things that I've noticed, and not many people have commented on, was like, since voting for Brexit, we've been treading water.
Yes.
Whereas the continent has been moving forward with a lot of things that we care about.
Yeah.
So related to Brexit was the Posted Workers Directive. Right?
Yes.
We had a big issue about that for the reasons of undercutting.
Yes.
But guess what? It's not just an issue for the UK and the UK alone. It was also an issue for France and Germany. And it was France that went forward on that and actually got the progress on the Posted Workers Directive.
Got the whole of Europe to do it. Yes.
Well, quite. And that's the idea. When you get the whole continent to do it, then it means none of the other individual countries can drop beneath and start undercutting the rest. And when you've got changing working conditions that are changing so fast, you're then impeding your ability to actually improve quality of life if you've got 27 or 28 countries that could undercut each other.
Yeah.
So this is why we're seeing, I think...
But that's exactly why Brexit in Britain has been driven by the neoliberal right wing.
For sure.
They're
looking at the States, they want that model.
The world's largest market is a market with rules to protect workers, rules to protect the environment, rules to protect consumers, rules that could be better. That's what Labour MEPs fight for day in, day out. Yeah. But they're significant enough for the neoliberal right wing of the Tory party to go apoplectic. Yeah. They want to tear up those rules, have a corporate free-for-all, Trump-style economy where big companies can do what they like. That's why they want Brexit.
They want the UK to be the low-wage, low-regulation part of Europe, undercutting the rest of Europe. I mean, when I spoke to people in the EU, they say, well, it's David Cameron that held us back on all these things. You know, when before the obviously after the referendum it's slightly different. Before the referendum it was the UK that actually held back on workers' rights. It's the UK that tried to open up European rail markets. You know, it wasn't the rest of Europe. It was Conservative governments here that stopped what's a European Union improving workers' rights, trying to improve public sector infrastructure.
Totally. I mean, that's what's always for me been the frustration with the Brexit argument, because we know that out of the European family that it's always been us going like right wing, and then Brexit say let's cut the cord, and I wonder which direction our country is going to lurch in. We're seeing it already. You know, it does frustrate me that level of delusion.
You mentioned Lexiteers. Now, sometimes you hear the argument, we can't renationalise our industries because European rules don't allow it. Yeah, that's rubbish. Wrong. Very wrong. Article, easy to remember, 345 of the European Treaty says the question of ownership is a national decision.
Yes.
So if you want to have private or public ownership, it's your choice. Yeah. If you put it into private ownership and you open it to tender, then of course you have to accept tenders from across the EU.
Part of the market,
but it's your decision. You can have things in public ownership if you choose.
I'll be honest,
the clearest example of this is actually with the NHS, because I mean I looked into this and I talked with European lawyers about the NHS, about this particular issue. It's quite simple. If you don't want it in the marketplace, then you can take it out of the marketplace. Look at NHS England versus NHS Scotland. You know, we have done the scientific test within our own Union of Nations.
Yes, that's true. I have to say, on the doorstep, Article 345 is my only talking point at the moment. So, you know, you're right about that. Yeah.
Wait till you get on to comitology.
Oh yes, they're all very keen. They're all very keen. So it's great. I mean, the issues that come out when you go to Brussels are really interesting because, you know, for instance, our rail's a big passion of mine. We've got a real issue here with Northern Rail, which is owned by Arriva, which is basically a Dutch company, and actually every state is allowed to own the British Railways apart from the UK state. I mean, how can that be true? In Germany you have Deutsche Bahn, in France you have SNCR. You have state railway in the rest of Europe. We can have state railway here. It's not the EU that's the problem. It is the Conservative government that are choosing the private option, the for-profit option, and where the profit's going elsewhere in Europe.
And isn't it telling that most countries in Europe, almost all countries in Europe, have concluded that their rail system works better if it's a publicly owned national network. Only in Britain have we said, let's split it up into privately owned monopolies.
My God, it's almost like Europe is the model. And I think that going forward, more and more people in Labour are now actually seeing that, and actually seeing that the choice going forward is between Europe and the way we do things as British Europeans and the American model, where people do work various different jobs at the same time, and lots of standards are falling through, and the food is
You're right. The number of so-called Lexiteers is diminishing. The number of people in the Labour Party who perhaps at one time thought maybe Brexit's not so bad, or there's a silver lining to it. That number has gone down and down.
I think it's very telling actually in terms of trade unions that the trade union that came out first for a public vote in staying in the EU was the TSSA, which is a rail union, because they never bought into this idea that we couldn't have public ownership. Their two main policies actually at the moment are bring the railways in public ownership and stay in the EU. How would that work if you couldn't do both things? So, Manuel Cortes is a great advocate, of a public vote and staying in the EU, but also probably the greatest advocate for having public ownership of the railways as well. So it's not at all mutually exclusive. So, but it isn't just, we've talked about the workers and the railways. It's a whole range of issues. The European working collective across Europe, for instance, in the area around health, medicine's hugely important. The European Medicines Agency was based in London. Where's it now? Amsterdam. That's not a Brexit dividend. Where's our Brexit dividend? How many jobs did we lose? 500 jobs, was it?
What's the opposite of a dividend?
Plus the supply chain.
A blow.
Charge, I don't know.
It's huge.
So I will say one thing about the European Medicines Agency and the size of that loss. It was nearly 1,000 employees, right? With a turnover, and this is taxable turnover, of 300 million a year.
Wow.
And associated with nearly 40,000 business visits a year, because it wasn't just the European Medicines Agency per se, but all of the industries around it that wanted to get those opinions, and everyone that would then fly in order to have those important meetings.
And conferences and the pharmaceuticals.
The hotel rooms, the taxi visits, the restaurants, a mini industry there that was sat in the heart of London. And not only have we lost the European Medicines Agency as a building, but we've also lost our place in the single market for medicines, which means that instead of being in one of the top tiers for medicines being tried out first, suddenly we're splintered from that market. We go down the feeding chain, and we're like Switzerland and Canada that have been getting their medicines 6 months after the European Union. And for critical medicines, end-of-life medicines, cancer treatments, that does make a difference. And that's very sad that we don't have the science and the hospitals at that cutting edge where you're looking at bringing in those new drugs. And this is something we've done to ourselves.
All of these things built pressure up actually around the Labour movement for us to move to the position which we did earlier in the summer. Really, you're on the Labour Party's National Executive. So in, was it June or July, the National Executive said, actually now we need to support having a public vote against the deal, not this deal.
On any outcome.
On any outcome.
Any outcome.
You know,
has to go back to the public.
has to go back to the public. And obviously, At that point, it was still May's deal, and then it became Johnson's deal, and then potentially have the election, and then there'll be within 3 months a Labour deal, and then we're gonna have the public vote on that. And I think with both of you, I've been on many platforms, and we've always advocated for public vote. We've also advocated that because of all the things we've spoken about, the only reasonable conclusion is for us to campaign to stay in the EU. It's important to have the democratic event of the public vote, but we need to know and we need to be clear about which side we're on. For workers, for industry, for health, for public services, and that's remaining in the EU, isn't it?
To remain. So some people say, well, hang on, so you're going to negotiate a deal and then campaign against it. But think about it. If you're having a referendum, the choice is to remain, but you've got to have another choice.
Of course. You can't remain against Remain.
Despite the cost and the problems and the difficulties. So you've got to have an option for them. So we must at least make it the least damaging option possible. Yeah. That's why we would renegotiate our deal, the Johnson deal, the May deal, to have something less damaging for Britain. It's not Labour's deal, it's a less damaging deal. But we would still, as a party,
I view it like insurance. If we lost the referendum, if we lost the public vote, we're insured against the worst effects of leaving the EU.
I don't mind that it's Labour's deal. In fact, I quite like the way you said it before. We've had May's deal, we've had Johnson's deal, and then if we put a Labour deal, then you've gone through all the possible options that you could cover,
Well, no, there's the Farage non-deal. You're just missing out on that option there.
But that is an option that has also been flown, okay? And all of these, one by one, have been shot down. So we've had May's deal. It wasn't just unpopular in Parliament, but it was also unpopular in the country, okay? If you look at polling. No deal, it wasn't just ruled out by our Parliament, but look at polling, it was unpopular in the country. Boris Johnson's deal, well, even if he comes to power, it's not going to be with over 50% of the vote, and we can see from polling that it really doesn't, carry that much enthusiasm. So if it comes to the situation whereby Labour get a majority or put together a government, it is their responsibility to say, all right, we'll give you yet another option. Not no deal, not May's deal, not Johnson's deal, another deal versus Remain. And that is only the responsible thing to do.
Absolutely.
And everyone is entitled to campaign for what they see as the right thing for the country.
It's not saying we're getting the fantastic thing that will solve all the problems. It's getting the least damaging deal possible as the option if you want to leave.
And some
but
people
we're
still
still better off
There
Remain.
are some Labour voices that say that they would go for that because they want to get out of the structure, but they think they can take a hit for a while. There will be people who campaign for it.
They'll have the option, absolutely. So really, we've concluded that there's something there for the Leavers and for the people who want to stay in the EU, and we need that democratic event. So it's been really, I think, useful conversation to explore all the issues, air them. And I'm really pleased you managed to come up to Leeds, Mike, and it's good to see you again. And Richard popping over from Shipley via Brussels. It's all great to see you. And we've got until the 12th of December really to try and get the message out there that Labour is a party that supports public vote. Whatever way we look at it, there's no advantage to leaving the EU, but we need a democratic event like we had in 2016 to give people the final say on our membership of the EU.
There's one clear conclusion from this: vote Alex Sobel. Vote Alex Sobel, and then, if you're not sure if you have, vote Alex Sobel again, and make sure all of your friends and your family and your neighbours and everyone in your neighbourhood also votes Alex Sobel. Cheers.
Absolutely right. And on top of that, there will be another referendum on Brexit on the ground that it bears no resemblance whatsoever to what was promised by Boris Johnson and the Leave campaign 3.5 years ago. It's right that it goes back to the people, and the public is shifting against Brexit because it's turning out to be a bloody disaster.
We're definitely using that bit, Mike's there. Definitely using that. We're definitely using that.